Okay, third and the final part of getting this plane ready. 15 minutes is my limit. Passengers are boarding. Cabin is heating up. We just turned that on. And if we look up here, we see these align lights flashing slightly. The heading status is showing us error 8. If you look that up, then you will see that it says airplane does not, or IRS system does not know position. If I turn this left CDU up a little bit in brightness, you can actually see that there's also a complaint. It says enter IRS position. Now I could enter the IRS position on the display unit or on the actual IRS unit myself, but it's pretty cumbersome. So what I'd like to do is I clear away this warning and I use the actual airplane position. You could look it up in a chart, but it's lazy guys like me just use the GPS left. It's usually very accurate, and I hit the line select key next to it. That copies it down here into the scratch pad. I go back to the previous page, 1 of 3, and enter it right here into these empty boxes. And as I do that, keep an eye on the screens. You can still see the attitude flag and map flag, and if I put that in here, immediately the IRS knows where it's at and these work okay. Alright, we're still not done with going through the panels. Now it's the main instrument panel, and I'm just going from left to right. Check the time, check the date, and I'd like to move all these plastic speed bugs up here during pre-flight, unless I forget to set them later on, and then that would be dangerous if I have them set on the wrong spot. Test these warning lights here for the autopilot, autothrottle, and FMC. They seem to be okay. Of course, you have the light test switch here that turns on all the lights in the cockpit on the overhead panel. Whoops, seat is getting in the way. And you can hunt for burned out light bulbs that way too. And you can see here all the segments in the liquid crystal displays flash as well. And then back to bright. I just want to check the IRS again really quick. It does have a test view, and it shows all the lights, shows all the segments, and if I move down, you can actually see it's showing certain modes. It shows the half bank, and then when I let it go, it comes back to normal. And I'm just going back to heading status here. Okay. Continuing over here, fuel, push the button, hold it, goes until it goes to arrow 4, and now the fuel indicator goes through a little self-test, showing all the segments, showing everything off, full fuel, and then actual fuel again. Going over here, checking the engine instruments, they're all lit. I don't have to reset the fuel used because we didn't use any this morning. I move down here. If I move this one to off, you will see anti-skid in-op. Fortunately it is working. Use the auto brake to RTO, reject the takeoff mode, and after a short self-test the disarm light disappears. That means everything's working well. Co-pilot of course would test his own stuff. I have to do it for him. Lazy guy still outside or chatting in the back. So I'm going to move his plastic box up just as well, and test the ground proximity system. Short push, less than 3 seconds.
Pull up. Wind shear. Wind shear.
It's just a short
Wind
test.
shear.
If you push it for a longer
Terrain,
time, you'll
terrain.
get all the
Up.
voice warnings
Runway.
that the ground
Awareness.
proximity system
Okay.
can do.
Meter.
Of course, get some more air in here. It's also cold in the cockpit. Adjust the air conditioning outlets here just the way you like them. And of course, we want to turn on the weather system now. It's not really transmitting yet unless we push the weather push button later on, but we only do that as we taxi out. Okay, quick glance down here. Everything should be working. We're going to move this is the EFIS control panel. I like to have it on map for now. Select 20 miles range, and we usually move these ones down. This is a decision altitude for the radar altimeter. You would only use it on a category 2 or 3 approach. The category 1 or non-precision approach, this minimum is set with this one because you're working off barometric altitude and not off radar altitude. Okay, this concludes the cockpit preparation. Now all we have to do is set up the navigation equipment for the departure. And Wilmington doesn't really have an SID, so we're just going to use, I printed out the airport diagrams here. There's lots of online sources where you can get that stuff. We're just going to take off runway 06. That's fairly close here to the terminal, and therefore I'm going to move my course selector. I'll switch this to expanded view RILS, and if I move the course here, you can see I just move it to 060, the actual 057 or 058. So that gives me a reference for the departure runway, and of course I'm going to move the heading mark there as well. Turn left 058. And I don't want to use the flight director, so I'll just leave that off for now. Don't arm the auto throttle yet. It could accidentally set power, so you only do that just before you enter the runway. And of course the first VOR I want to navigate to is Wilmington. That's 117.0. So I am going to set that on the nav1, and you can already see that it is indicating on the VOR direction would be about 25 degrees bearing inbound, and I can verify that on the co-pilot side here. Also set it to Wilmington, and he has the conventional full rose mode selected. You can see that here, which is fine, and I'm going to turn it until 025 we set about. So here we go. That radial is centered now. That gives us a good indication. So after takeoff we want to turn left, fly direct to Wilmington. Okay, first altitude we want to go to. Let's not put it too low. Maybe put it to level or 7,000 feet. We're in the US. They use feet altitude up to 18,000. I have to remind that. And let's check the recall real quick. Still some stuff going on. If you cancel it, everything goes out, and if you push the recall, the ones that are still valid are on. And of course we have the dual bleed, we have the pitot heats, hydraulics, electrics, and this is all the stuff that shows up here. That is okay. Okay, last thing we do is we set up the FMS. We're not using LNAV, VNAV. This is still work in progress. It works partially but not very nicely. But what you can do is you can actually use the performance page. We have a zero fuel weight of 40 tons. You can change that here, of course, but that's what it is right now. And you can change the cost index and the trip level to 70. I think that's what I put in. Yeah, it's up here. Okay, so next page would be, you can, the nifty thing here is you just hit init ref. That always takes you to the relevant page. Right now it's performance init. It has everything entered. You just click on the very right, lower right button. It takes you to the N1 limit. In the real plane you'd have a certain program or runway weight charts that shows you what kind of derating you can use. Right now you see the 20K, the limit is at 88.3. The left one is different because I have the left pack on, so it's 87.3. And if I derate the airplane, let's say 55 degrees, you see that goes down to reduced and lesser climb power. It's an own subject all by itself. Let's not dig in deeper, and we'll just use a flaps 5 takeoff. The field is not so long, the runway is not that long, so I'm going to 5 is the default, but I like to override it. That makes this number big. Let's see. Yep, and that now the I know that this is something I put in and not something that the computer has just as a default. Here are the quick reference handbook own computed values. You could look those up and change those, but we're just going to use what the computer suggests. And if you look over here, you can still see it's set to 100, and there's nothing on the E80i speed tape. But as I enter these numbers, the first click moves them over. V1, VR, V2, and now you can see V1 is displayed here. And of course we also want to set the V2 135 with the MCP speed knob and that gets us ready for takeoff. And now you see in magenta 135. Of course, we also want to set the speed bugs, so memorize these values: 123, 125, 135, and I'm just going to use 3 of them. 2 are just for whatever. Some people like to set them to 80 or some other value during the takeoff run, so I'm just going to put them to 123, and the other 2 I put 15 knots faster than V2, so that would be 150. And this denotes the maneuvering speed, so as soon as you're over this speed you can bank the airplane up to 25 degrees. Below this you'd only bank 15 degrees, otherwise you're too close to the stall speed. Okay, this is it for now. Passengers are still boarding, and next thing to do would be the engine start. Before I do that, I will of course set the parking brake. Ground crew will disconnect the chocks, or will move the chocks away. By now it's gotten pretty bright outside, and I will show you how we start the engines and get everything ready for taxi out and do the taxi out in the next video.